What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be breaking down a 3-round mock draft by AtoZ Sports. So if you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I haven't done a 3-round mock the mock in a hot minute, so I'm seeing a lot of people on here that I used to know, including Ian Valentino. Super excited to see it. Let's get into it. Let's have a great time. If you are new again, I'd love for you to join the community. I just posted a video that's 50 minutes long, a little bit over that, where I was actually breaking down why I was wrong about certain players in the preseason versus now. Honestly, it's one of the pieces that I wish more people did, but it's something I am a little proud of. In case you want to understand the full transparency about like where I went wrong and maybe it could save you a misstep here and there, feel free to go check that out. Of course, if you guys haven't already checked out my X page, that is where I post a lot of all-22 clips, which justify the board below my face, which is a little crazy. I get it. There have been some changes. We're doing a running back video this week, hence why the running backs have been shifting around. But yeah, you could also end up using that link to the UnderDog Fantasy code, where you can use HAILMARY Sports and you get the $1,000 bonus cash when you sign up. But let's get into it, because we have a lot of video to talk about. Of course, yeah, 3 rounds. We're going to try to have a good amount of discussion without it being too much of a crazy monologue. But the Giants go Cam Ward at number 1. Drew Aller just ended up returning, so I don't think... this says it's 3 hours ago, and this is post-Drew Aller returning. I don't think that this is going to account for that. Just spoiler alert, but we'll discuss it when the time comes. With Drew Aller out and possibly even Jalen Milroe, it looks like the quarterbacks that are semi-competent actually might end up going at the top. So... just the probability is a lot higher. Unfortunately, it is what it is. But Cam Ward is an absolute baller. Of course, Shedeur Sanders doing his best to try to get selected first overall because, he's throwing a ball with Malik Neighbors in the street. Like, a power to him for doing that. But quarterbacks go at number 1 and 2. Let's not get too crazy with the analysis. That's what I do every single week. And we're having a mock draft tomorrow. And then we also... of course, have our 3-round mock draft as well for the week. So plenty of quarterback analysis that'll be in there. Quarterback 1-2 just kind of seems like it's a solid thing to do. At number 3, the New England Patriots go Travis Hunter. At this point, it just feels like they're going BPA. I don't know if necessarily Travis Hunter is the best player in the class. I know people are really firmly on that ground, and he's an amazing player. I don't want to take anything away from him. He is in my top 10. I think he's a very, very good player. But at the same time, I do think that it's getting to a ridiculous point where if you have an opinion where Travis Hunter is a top 10 player set number 1, people call you an absolute dumbass, and it's like, oh, it's insane, you're on crack. Like guys, every single year, do you think the number 1 pick is going to be the number 1 player in the class? Hasn't really been the case very often. So just because you guys are in the hive mind, which it's okay, you guys might be right, it doesn't mean that you can disqualify other people who actually have their own opinions as well. And maybe that is your own opinion, but don't disqualify other people for having genuinely honest opinions. That Travis Hunter is a good player, but he's not the best corner in the class. He's not the best receiver in the class. He's just a really solid talent. At number 4, I got the Panthers going Abdul Carter. Makes a ton of sense. I'd go Mason Graham due to the drop-off in talent after Abdul Carter. Outside of that, I wouldn't really complain too much about it. Then you got the Jaguars going said player in Mason Graham. They drafted 2 defensive interiors last year and last draft, but of course, don't let a sunk cost fallacy eliminate the opportunity for real growth on the team. I do think Will Johnson's a better player than Mason Graham, but Mason Graham is by far the best defensive interior in the class. I did a top 15 defensive interior video where I ended up breaking that down, so feel free to check that out as well because it's pretty much brand new. At number 6, we got the Titans going T-Mac. It just kind of makes sense. Basically, DeAndre Hopkins replacement. Not going to spend too much time on that. The Jets go Will Johnson to end up replacing DJ Reed. Makes sense. BPA. The Browns then go James Pierce at number 8 overall. James Pierce is a phenomenal player. He's my number 2 player in the class. However, I don't know if I'm necessarily fully there on James Pierce. Or James Pierce to the Browns, that is. They like a little bit more size on their edge rushers, but if they're willing to transition to a newer system, then maybe... I'd be down for it, but I do think that's a little bit of oversight in terms of the schematic, or at least what the Browns have been trying to look at in terms of the quality and size and build of the edge rusher that they're going for. At number 9, the Bears go Luther Burden. Technically, he's going to replace Keenan Allen. I don't think Luther Burden's that good. Just hate to break it to y'all. I've had him as a top 40 player in my class. I'm a bit lower on him than most, but at the same time, I think the Bears have much bigger fish to fry than going after a slot receiver. I think that there are bigger value points where you can go offensive line. You could even go after like Jalen Walker if you want to as an edge rusher. I just think there's a lot bigger return on investment picks than Luther Burden. At number 10, you got the Saints going Kelvin Banks to go, I assume, right tackle for him. Don't know. Like, I really wish that they actually had an explanation. Like, they're really happy to have their pick of the litter when it comes to offensive tackles. They select a day one starter. Like, no disrespect, Rob, you didn't really say exactly the role that he's going to play. And it says tackle, so I assume it'll be that right tackle spot. But do you have a vision of putting Tali Fawaga back to right tackle, or similar to what would happen if the Titans go after a left tackle or a player who is playing left tackle? Are you going to move, someone who has been successful at a high value position to an area of like where they used to be? Do you think they're going to translate? Again, I feel like there's a little bit of a lack of analysis there. At number 11, we got the Dolphins going Will Campbell. I highly doubt that they end up doing it, but Will Campbell would be an amazing addition for the Dolphins. Colts then go Tyler Warren at 12. I honestly think that the tight ends are going to go much higher than expected. It's a good tight end class, but there's a difference between the guys at the top than the rest of the class. Bengals then get Ashton Genty at 13. I firmly believe this guy's going to go in the top 10. I think it's almost disingenuous for people to have looked at history and then just decide because he's a running back, he's not going to be able to go in that range. Again, it was very probable that Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson were going at 6 and 8 respectively in their draft. Like, the video showed that the Lions were willing to take Jahmyr Gibbs at 6. Do not think that the NFL is just all of a sudden going to just degrade these running backs that are better than those two. Just going to put that out there. But the Bengals would be stupid to pass on them. Cowboys then go Jalen Walker. I do think that if you use him as a linebacker at 14, that's where you can start digesting linebacker picks. You're really going to have to use him like a Micah, I assume. I assume that you guys are plus the Cowboys lack depth at edge rusher. The edge rusher that they're going to be losing this offseason is DeMarcus Lawrence, which technically Marshawn Nealon could be the replacement for that, but Sam Williams as well, not necessarily going to be gone. So I don't really agree with the lack of depth at edge rusher, especially if you end up addressing it with one of maybe a little bit more size to be that true D-Law replacement. You also have Micah Parsons there. And those are 3 legitimate players that are, legitimate starting quality edge rushers. So I think injuries have been the Cowboys' downfall so far, not necessarily depth. And if you're going to go after an edge rusher, you're going to talk about it. Jalen Walker doesn't appear to be the style of edge rusher that they'd be going for unless you're not bringing back Micah, which they better. And they're stupid as hell if they don't. But, of course, their fiscal capabilities have been pretty mediocre, to say the least. Jalen Walker would have to be a linebacker, in my opinion, in the Dallas Cowboys system to be able to make it work, at least in the short term, unless you really are going to get rid of Micah, which, again, I think that's stupid as hell, but it is what it is. San Francisco 49ers go Derek Harmon. I feel like this is just a copy and paste pick from a lot of mock drafts recently. I think they'll go after defensive interior, but just not on day one. Derek Harmon is a good player. He's a true junior. I just don't think that he's necessarily talented enough to be a top 15 pick, but he's done a great job this year. Got to give him his credit. Falcons can go Mikael Williams at number 16. I think there's a lot better edge rushers in the class than Mikael, but at the same time, Georgia, Atlanta, I think that with the amount of picks that they have, sometimes you got to reach, but I do think there are better edge rushers there. And then this is an interesting one. Cardinals go Mike Green. It makes sense. It fits. But how many edge rushers are going to go in the first round to qualify Mike Green to be someone to go at 17? I do have my skepticism there. Mike Green did a phenomenal job, but I do think that, versus Ohio State especially, he was not nearly as effective as what people want to say. People like to call out the last rep. I think he played that game where he ended up, he just ended up getting a really, really nice sack. But people try to weigh that a little bit too much. Looking at the overall performance that game, it definitely showed that there are areas of development and weakness that I will be talking about in my edge video when it does come out. But I do think it's a little bit of oversight to force Mike Green to the Cardinals 17. I think a far better pick would be to go after Tyleik Williams. Then we have the Seahawks going Nick Scorton. Another pick technically the Cardinals could have wanted to go after, but regardless, I think with the quantity of offensive line and quality of offensive line on the board, I think that the Seahawks would be a little bit foolish to go after Nick Scorton. I don't think that defense is nearly the problem for Seattle, especially at edge rusher. I personally don't think that you need to... I guess this is a best player available. I know, my boy Destin, shout out to him. He's a great guy. I just don't really think this is a great pick. That's just me. It's great value for the great player, but I don't think that it really solves anything in terms of actually making the team better overall. The Chargers didn't go Kenneth Grant. It's an easy, simple, like, drop into the defense he once was. I also think, though, I believe Colston Loveland still has not been taken, so I don't really agree. Yeah, I just proved it right there. I don't think that that would have been the best player available. The Buccaneers didn't go Jalen Milroe. What? Okay. No disrespect, Rob, but what? The Bucs are in a relationship with Baker Mayfield, but are far from married. What? Let's get past that. We have a bunch of picks to review, but no. That's the analysis. No. Rams go after Colston Loveland, who's a very similar player to Colby Parkinson, so I guess it does kind of, fit what the Rams are looking for, but the Rams just ended up paying Colby, I believe, a 3-year, $20-something million deal. So I don't really know if they're going to be focusing on Colston Loveland, who's the exact archetype that Colby is in the first round. People want to bring up, they tried to trade up for Brock Bowers. Who the fuck wouldn't? I mean, like, if you think he is the GOAT tight end, that's probably what you're going to go for. And necessarily Colby hasn't been like Jesus himself, even though he sometimes looks like it. I don't know if he cut his hair. He might have cut his hair. It doesn't look like it anymore. But Colston Loveland is, I think it's a, okay move. But when you have true left tackles on the board like Arianti Urzuri, I do think it's a little bit of an overreach. You got the Commanders going Emeka Egbuka here, wide receiver. If you have Olamide Zaccheaus kind of being your number 2 dude, Emeka Egbuka, like, when healthy, not a bad choice. You got the Broncos going Isaiah Bond here at 23. It just fits like literally every other receiver archetype on their squad. It's not necessarily a big and forceful player outside of like Cortland Sutton, and it's just like deep speed. Isaiah Bond, I do not think should come out this year. I don't think he will come out this year. He's a true junior who dealt with injuries and had a very unsuccessful year, who could end up being a top 10 pick next year if he's fully healthy and displays the talent that he did early in the year. So, for the Broncos, if they end up doing this, okay, but I don't really think it adds anything to the offense that you don't necessarily already have. Maybe it minutely boosts it, but there are areas of improvement on the Broncos that I would have preferred for them to have gone after, so we'll leave it there. Baltimore Ravens then go Tyleik Williams here. Going after a high floor player like Tyleik, who is extremely underappreciated, is, I think that's perfectly reasonable. He is an awesome defensive interior, and, I would be pissed off as a Steelers fan, but, as looking at through the Baltimore Ravens lens, you're just getting yourself a damn good player who will be pretty much out there on every single down. I think he's going to be a better pass rusher in the NFL than he was in college. Malachi Starks goes to the Houston Texans. Shouldn't fall this far. Maybe the reason why he did in this is because he had some struggle performances, but I think that's a bit of oversight as to the fact that he shouldn't be a slot. He shouldn't be in man versus fast receivers. Like, he's just athletically limited. But does that stop defensive backs from being good? No. That's what a shitty defensive coordinator does when they have a player that has legitimate limitations and then they don't move them. I'm not going to say that that Georgia has a shitty defensive coordinator, but I think that over the past couple games, the lack of adjustment has been a big oversight. So Malachi Starks, I still think, is an absolute stud. Just don't put him in the slot versus fast receivers, and don't put him in a situation where athleticism could be the primary reason why he ends up letting up yards. Like, there are a lot of roles in the NFL that do not require you to be unbelievably athletic, and Malachi Starks is not a crap athlete. It's just when you face really good athletes, you can get cooked. And I think that Georgia needed to learn their lesson. I hope that they do, and I think that this is going to be insane if Malachi Starks is here at 25. Steelers and go Siobhan Revell. I do think we need a true corner too. Joey Porter, brother apparently of Joey Porter Jr. is like no longer going to be someone I care about, but the actual Joey Porter Jr. on our team. Rob, again, come on, man. Like, where's the editing on this? So far, I've had issues primarily with what Rob's doing. I don't know Rob, and like, this is nothing against him as a person, but like, obviously, like, guys, we got editors. Editors, help your boy out. Help Rob out here. But we do need a corner too. Siobhan Revell definitely fits the similar profile to Dante Jackson. I would want someone who's a little more fluid, but at the same time, Siobhan Revell, very good corner. And I mean, I'm not going to be against the Steelers actually having a good secondary. We used to have guys like Cody Sensabaugh out there and like Artie Burns. So, I'm not going to bitch and moan if he's necessarily going to be the pick. Then we got Green Bay Packers going Walter Nolan. A 3-tech for Green Bay is certainly something they can go after. Walter Nolan's not a big my guy, but at the same time, I do think he ends up going the first. Just declared, I think today or maybe yesterday. Regardless, going to be the pick. Then you got the Vikings going Jihad Campbell. Let's look at this. So Flores prioritizes versatility, and having a second 3-down linebacker could take the defense to a new level. I assume, I honestly wish there was a little bit more in-depth analysis as to why you would not go after positions of higher value, where running back Amari and Hampton, who I've been notoriously against, like that's one of the reasons why I made my video. It's like, dude, this guy like took a big step up. Like Amari and Hampton's there. You can talk about Tyler Booker, Wyatt Milam, a significant amount of massive upgrades. And then you go after Jihad Campbell, which, I mean, hey, I respect it. It's a unique opinion, and you're talking about, hey, they do need that second 3-down linebacker, but do you have a vision of saying, hey, these other needs should be addressed in free agency and actually the depth in this class? Like, if you want to say that for guard, fine. I'm not going to get too grouchy about that because I understand interior offensive line depth in this class, very good. But when we're talking about even like running back, technically you could talk about that too. But basically saying simply that you're just going to take a linebacker for this reason, I really wish I could understand like your thought process. And I'm trying to play devil's advocate, like running back, sure, but I also have a player who is number 6 on my board that would be available here. That's why I'm thinking that. Bills go Jordan Birch. I'm going to be honest, have not fully evaluated Jordan Birch yet, but I don't really think he is first-round quality. I haven't heard anybody else talking about him. And th'ey're talking about a player at 6'4", 295 that's going to remain at edge when he's classified primarily as a defensive lineman, if not defensive interior from time to time. So I don't think that the Bills are going to be going after a tweener in the draft, especially when you have some better options who have a little bit more talent and a little bit more of a translatable frame. But I mean, I've loved Jordan Birch there at Oregon. I did not ever really see a first-round player. Philly goes Princey Umanmielen. It kind of fits because he does have a solid enough frame to be a pass rusher, an effective run defender, as well as the overall skill set to play in coverage. Then we have the Detroit Lions going LT Overton. I doubt he comes out. He's a true junior coming off a really solid year, but could be even better. But if he does come out, the Detroit Lions taking him at 31. It's great. KC goes Ben Morrison at 32. Excellent value. He was technically my number 2 player when I first initially graded him, but some other players took some big steps up. My grades with the pluses are pre-injury, so keep that in mind. Technically, Will Johnson could get a plus as well, but Ben Morrison to the Chiefs is a fantastic pick. So shout out to my boy Destin for making another pick that, I actually like this time. And round 2, number 33, the Giants go Wyatt Milam. Let's see. Are they talking about him as a tackle? So, offensive lineman, experience at left and right tackle. So I assume Travis is drafting Wyatt Milam, and especially because of this, I just wanted to double check. As a tackle, the majority of the community believes that Wyatt Milam's arm length is going to disqualify him from playing tackle at a consistent rate. Like, I think the number is sub 32 inches, which like 32 is where you start really questioning it. Sub 33, it's like, okay, you can start like, questioning it. 32 is like, we're having a legit discussion, like you can't play tackle. So I'm really worried about that for the Giants. I mean, it's a lot easier to play against college athletes when you have shorter arms than NFL. So I do think it could end up coming into question. He had a hand injury or a wrist injury this year that kind of knocked his play as the season went on. But until then, he did a phenomenal job. Then you got the Vegas Raiders going Trey Harris at 34. A true number 1 receiver is something I fully support for Las Vegas. I do have a couple issues with Trey Harris. I don't think that he will translate to the NFL the way he's done in college. But at the same time, you have someone who's a really nice, fun, big physical threat down the field. Maybe not at 34, but maybe in that 3rd round, 4th round territory, you can end up getting lucky with Trey Harris. Number 35, you got the Jaguars going Max Hairston. Max Hairston's a very good corner, doesn't have the physical build or this physicality that Tyson Campbell does. So I don't really know if he necessarily fits what the Jacksonville Jaguars have in terms of vision. So I would just push back on that. But the Jaguars getting a good corner, not against what I would want. The Bears then go Josh Simmons at 36. So that's great. I've done that at number 9 even. He was my number 4 player. Again, I had Ashton Genty jump him, but he's my number 4 player before being injured, and I think he's done a fantastic job. I still think he should go in the top 10, but we'll see what the medicals are. At number 37, the Titans go Dylan Gabriel. I just highly doubt that a player who is under 6 foot, they'll say it's 6 foot, but pretty much until he got to Oregon, he was sub 6 foot, and he's going to be like 200 pounds. Not going to go in the first 2 rounds. I love the guy to death. He was my QB1 coming into the year, as crazy and batshit stupid as that sounds. Like, it's true. But like, I love Dylan Gabriel to death. He's not going to be taken in the second round unless the class is really that dire, which, if there is a class to do it, might be this one. I don't know if the Titans are going to be taking a quarterback with certain particular legitimate questions in the second round. I don't know if they're going to be doing that again. At 38, we got the Browns going Zay Alexander. Zay Alexander isn't a pure corner to me. He is a really solid safety. I think his athleticism is really what it could get the best of him, and it is the worst aspect of his game. I think that he's very similar comp to Tacario Davis, and I don't know if Tacario is committed to a particular school, but I would hope that he could go to LSU to replace Zay, because Zay's done a great job there, and LSU knows how to cover up his inefficiencies, and I think that's where Tack Davis could end up doing really well as well. So I don't really, I love Ian to death, y'all know that, but I do think that defensive back is going to be a better designation for Zay Alexander when it comes to the NFL. New England Patriots go Tyler Booker, fantastic value. Not going to be going against that. It's BPA. Good job, Rob. Had enough issues so far, but we're making it through it together. Then we have Destin going with the Jets, Quinn Ewers. I don't think Quinn would be a second round pick, but I guess you're basically saying, why the hell not? If you could take a shot on Will Levis, you can take a shot on Quinn Ewers in the second. I guess you could say that. I think Aaron Rodgers wants to run it back. I think that's just the smartest move for the Jets to run it back one more time. Just do that. And you could try to develop Quinn Ewers, but personally, it's like forcing quarterbacks. If they're not going to start for you, they're the least valuable pick that you can have, right? They don't play any other position. They don't play pretty much any other snaps. If they're your starter, awesome. If they're never your starter, it's literally the least valuable pick. So you better have a future for Quinn Ewers, and maybe the Jets do, but I wouldn't be saying that I would have that future for him. The Bears then go an edge rusher here in Shamar Stewart. Doesn't necessarily fit the profile of the edge rusher that he'd be replacing in Darrell Taylor, but at the same time, you're just going best player available, so who can even kick to the inside for particular downs. Would be interesting to say the least. Saints then go Xavier Restrepo, who ended up beating, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the all-time yards leader at Miami. So good job for him. He's been really, really good there this year. I don't think he ends up going this high because he is, 5'11", doesn't necessarily have the exact same wide receiver profile that you're going to be looking for, has a ton of experience, but I just don't see a second round receiver pick from him. Not saying he doesn't have the talent to do it, but it's just more of it's a gut reaction rather than good analysis by saying I just don't see Restrepo in the second. Colts then go Xavier Watts here at 43. I think that going defensive back's a move I've done a billion times. Not going to be against them going right down the street and getting a ball hawk and Xavier Watts. Then you got the Bengals going Deion Walker. Super high ceiling player, but I ended up doing my defensive interior video. He's out of 15, my defensive interior 14. Do not really believe too much in him, unfortunately. His pad level is just not even dropped a single inch. And man, he's just not remotely as good of a player as I wanted him to be. And he's like a freak in terms of athleticism, size. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is, are you a good football player? And I don't think Deion Walker is a good football player. The Cowboys get my number 6 player here at 45, Amari Hampton. I really do think this guy is... it's insane. Coming into the year, I thought his vision was pretty mediocre. I honestly thought that he just didn't have enough consistent reps to be able to get comfortable. And this year, something just clicked, and he is legitimately, unbelievably phenomenal. I don't think Amari Hampton escapes the first remotely. And so I think we need to start showing him some respect. I think he might even be going top 12. I'm just going to put it there. But Maureen Hampton's a great pick for the Cowboys. Niners then go Josh Connerly at 46. They could actually end up using him as a guard if he fails at tackle. That's actually a really good move. Marcus Bowe goes to the Dolphins. I don't think they're going to go after back-to-back interior offensive linemen. Like, I think there are bigger fish to fry. Nick Eamon-Warry, especially on the board, would be a great pick. And, you're losing Javon Holland, potentially, but also you still needed a second safety. And the Dolphins do not have that, and there's some good quantity of them there. Ooh, Denzel Burke going the second. It's interesting. Again, something I really would appreciate on these sites, and they're probably not going to watch this, so it is what it is, but something I really wish that they ended up doing here is allowing their guys to elaborate a little bit more. Like just saying Burke's a potential to be a solid second corner as they aim to overhaul their defense. Like that doesn't tell me anything about Denzel Burke. Like it tells me like, hey, they're looking for a corner too. But like, why Denzel Burke, right? There's a lot of cornerbacks that have had far better years than Denzel Burke. I mean, hell, David Igbinosun might be a better pick than Denzel Burke. And that's me saying maybe, even though I believe it's a definite. But like Azariah Thomas, you could also talk about Trey Amos, Jermari Harris. Like there's a lot better corner talent, I believe, especially based on the play this year. So I'd really love to be able to hear why would he go Denzel Burke? Like I don't believe it's right, but at the same time, who gives a shit what I believe? I just want to understand why he did it. And like, I'm just saying, like, maybe for next time for AtoZ Sports, like, I think you would agree as well. Like, I think we'd be in consensus on this. Like, understanding why specifically this player would be a lot more beneficial than just talking about why the Falcons would want a corner. Arizona Cardinals go Jonas Avenia, interior offensive lineman. I like the flexibility there. My boy Ian Valentino not letting us down with that one. Seahawks go Jackson Dart at 50. I mean, technically, Sam Howell showed that they probably need to go and upgrade, but, they still have yet to address the offensive line. I think my boy Destin rolling the dice a little bit too early on the QB. I'm just going to be real right now. Then you got the Buccaneers going Jahdae Barron. Jahdae Barron's a fantastic defensive back. I don't know if he'll hold up to be a corner in the NFL with his short arms and sub 6 foot frame, but he's super smart, and I know he'll be successful. You just have to be patient and find the role that's best for him. Panthers then go Evan Stewart. I don't know if a small receiver is necessarily going to be what makes Carolina actually be able to solve its issues, which is primarily drops. So, I mean, personally, I wouldn't think Evan Stewart either has had the year to warrant this. I mean, he had a good game versus, like a great game versus Ohio State. But I mean, this past week versus Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, he didn't get a single catch. So it's like, again, 52 overall, that's really high. You're saying he's better than a lot of players, and I don't know if I'm really ready for that, but I guess you could end up saying he's a replacement for what Deontay Johnson was supposed to be, which, if this were not at 52, I'd be a lot more supportive of. At 53, you got the Chargers going Caleb Johnson. I mean, it feels like a Harbaugh back, and I'm just going to leave it there because I have a lot more analysis on Caleb Johnson. I'll just say, do not think he's worth the 53rd overall pick. At 54, the Broncos go Nick Singleton, someone who I believe in less than Caleb Johnson. I still think Caleb Johnson's a good back, and I still think he goes in the first 2 rounds because apparently that's the thing. If you're an underclassman, they tell you first round, second round, or return to school, so you don't really, come out unless you got a second round grade. But regardless, Nick Singleton, I personally don't think he's that great. And I love Penn State. You guys know me. I'm a sucker for Penn State. But it's just like, I know the Broncos need the upgrade. It's just another one that I personally think this guy, if you told me preseason this is going to be the case, maybe. But I haven't seen it from him recently. So not really a huge fan of that. Baltimore Ravens go Arianti Ursary at 55. It's literally a pick I make in my first round mock drafts if he's going to be there for Baltimore. And I actually had Baltimore trade up to be able to select Arianti Ursary. That is misspelled, by the way. Editors, guys, come on. Let's get real here. It's not Ian's fault for doing that. He's going to be someone who, Arianti Ursary. Just going to be honest. Let's improve ourselves, right? Let's improve ourselves. Where do I have Ursary? By the way, you can start seeing where, number 56 overall. Oh, that's going to make me cry. Where the hell did I have Ursary? Yes, this is going to show you a lot more shit than I normally do, but I got to remember where I used to have Ursary on this list. Did I take him out? Yeah. So it's AE, by the way, at 155. That's where he was at the start of the year. This is not updated, obviously, but he's taken a big step up. He was one of the guys who was on my list. But continuing on, help my boy Ian out. I mean, he's coming here with the good analysis and doing a great pick. Editors, let's do our stuff. Washington Commanders go Landon Jackson. I mean, he ended up being sent to the hospital because of like a head or neck injury. I hope that he's fully healthy. Very excited to see him. I think he's going to be at the Senior Bowl. I saw him on the roster. I just hope he's healthy at the Senior Bowl because he's a good player, unique build. I think that, he could definitely be a really good addition there to Washington. Don't think he's a top 50 player for me or top 64, but still think he's a good pick. Emory Jones going this early does kind of like make me question a little bit. I do think he does play guard for the Texans, which is the position that I want him to play. I just don't know after the year he's had if he's going to be worth it. I do feel like this is a mock draft that was made. Like, if you told me this was made like 3 months ago or 2 months ago, I'd be like, checks out. Don't really know if this is very up to date, even though it was released like 3 hours ago. Green Bay Packers go Cam Williams. It doesn't really fit the style of tackle the Packers draft. Packers like these tweeners. Like, you look at Marcus Bowe, Jordan Morgan, like a lot of tweener offensive tackles. Cam Williams is good value at this point. I mean, hell, if you want to go after someone who's like, you're going to develop for a while, cool. But, just kind of pretty much BPA at that point. Steelers going Jack Sawyer doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. We have a solid amount of depth right now at edge and, second round pick when we still could be looking for a QB, still could be looking for a defensive back like Nick Eamon-Warry. I mean, you saw the effect of Deshaun Elliott on this squad. Can you imagine what Nick Eamon-Warry could also do? While you also look at wide receiver, I do think Jack Sawyer is a little bit of a luxury pick that we don't have the luxury of picking. Then we have the Bills going Nick Eamon-Warry and TJ Sanders here. So, they have a lot of 290-pound players now on the defensive line with Sanders, Birch, as well as, I believe, is Ed Oliver still sub 300? Regardless of, defensive interior is great for the Bills, but they go back-to-back South Carolina boys. I think that's actually a pretty solid move. I actually like both of these. And number 62, the Eagles go Gunnar Helm. I don't think Gunnar Helm should be going above Harold Fannin, but Harold Fannin doesn't really fit the Eagles, so I get it. At number 63, Elic Iomaner goes to the Detroit Lions. I've been waiting for the Lions to get a true X receiver. That's fantastic value. Harold Fannin Jr. then goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. My boy Destin does him right and gets a really good tight end behind Josh Gray. So round 3, we got the Giants going Ja'Cory Brooks. Love some Ja'Cory Brooks. I ended up actually talking about him in my video where I was talking where I got him wrong at the start of the season. Basically, he had a fall off at Alabama. Not a big thing to, take a big learning lesson from, but it was good to at least see some potential with him and then watch him flourish this year. Then the Vegas Raiders go Trey Amos. Editors, where are y'all at? This is a big article, guys. Highlight that. I just know this because I have like air quotes PTSD of sports writing back in the day. And, I just feel like I would get grilled for this. So I'm like, let's, especially when you have some awesome people on here like Destin Adams, Ian Valentino. It's like, editors, let's work this out, man. I mean, we got some peer reviewing to do. But regardless, Vegas Raiders going Trey Amos, fantastic value, top 32 player on my board. Panthers go Kyle Kennard at 67, excellent value as well. They love South Carolina defenders. They go after another edge here, but at the same time, when you get the value of Kyle Kennard on day 2, not going to disagree. The Chiefs then go Donovan Zerowaku at 68. Excellent value. Going to replace pretty much the Josh Uche role that they ended up trading for him for. I will just say this is another reason why I'm going to be pushing back on that Mike Green at 17. Like, look where these two players went. Tell me how Mike Green at 17 makes any more sense than going after one of these two in the second or even the third round. Like, it doesn't make sense because they're all pretty equal in terms of talent. Browns then go Quinshon Judkins. I freaking love Quinshon Judkins. The more I watched him, the more I realized that this guy's just also look at Trey Henderson and watch when their play really started to take a hit. There was a moment Josh Simmons got hurt, right? So the whole entire, and then of course, I know that someone ended up mentioning this, Seth McLaughlin ended up, I think he ended up getting hurt too. So it's just like, the whole entire offensive line is absolute cheeks outside of Donovan Jackson, who's trying his best to masquerade as a left tackle. And I can't blame these guys. They're gonna be steals on day 2. Then we got the Patriots going Kyron Lacy. I personally like this one because you don't force Travis Hunter to be a wide receiver. Good pick there. Tate Ratledge goes to the Jaguars. High floor offensive guard. Perfectly fine with that. Vegas Raiders going Kobe Bryant. I don't think he's earned that right. And I love Kobe Bryant. He was like a top 32 player for me at the start of the year. But Kobe Bryant, I mean, I got to see him in person as well. He's a feisty player. I don't know if the Vegas Raiders are going to go multiple corners at this level. Number 73, the Bears go Gray Zabel. Good to at least see him get an offensive lineman. He's a left tackle. Also, I think he's pretty sure he's played the majority of college or majority of offensive line positions. So he does have that flexibility, and that's good for the Bears. Then you got the Saints going Jabbar Muhammad. This dude's an absolute savage. I mean, where's Jabbar on my board at the moment? Where the hell are you? You're 26 right now with a couple other players who definitely need to drop. Again, waiting on all 22. But Jabbar Muhammad, fantastic. I mean, really good player. Does not get the love he deserves. And yes, that is an updated score. 75, we got the Bengals going Tez Johnson. Honestly, not going to disagree. This dude's an absolute beast too. I love Tez Johnson. Don't think he gets the respect he deserves. I'm glad to see him in this. Then you got the Cowboys going Billy Bowman. Ooh, we got some thunder outside. Billy Bowman, I don't think he's earned this. His play has been too high and too low. And I love the high-level plays from Billy Bowman, but man, I don't think the Cowboys, especially after going pretty much a linebacker and then running back, I don't think they're in the luxury position to go after safety. I think they were in a prime position to go after defensive interior, which there's a lot of good ones on the board. So I'd prefer that or an interior offensive lineman. I know there's the Hoffman train, but I do think that there needs to be a longer-term option there to replace Zach Martin. Then San Francisco goes Braden Swinson. I love Braden Swinson. Great pickup there. Niners need some edge help. Commanders go Donovan Jackson. Great addition here who could potentially even be an offensive tackle for you. Then you got Azariah Thomas. Speaking of my boy, Colts end up snagging him. So great draft for the Colts overall. Josiah Stewart goes to the Patriots here. Obviously, I've done that pick myself. He's had a fantastic year. Just unique build, which is why teams are not going to be taking him way too early, but great pickup there. Darian Porter goes to the Cardinals. I mean, they need someone who's over 6 foot at corner, and so Darian Porter's actually a really good pickup. Good job, Ian. Then we got the Seahawks going Charles Grant here. He's not going to be an offensive tackle at 6'4", 300, but he's probably going to be a guard, and I don't know. He's going to be very intriguing. So I do think that multiple swings to improve the interior of the offensive line. I like that. So give the Seahawks as much firepower as possible. I'm not going to disagree. Chris Paul Jr. has officially declared for the NFL draft. Saw that post not too long ago. Goes to the Rams at 83, which I don't think the Rams value linebacker enough. But at the same time, if they do take him there, not going to complain. Then you got the Chargers going Omar Norman Lott, who is a first-round quality player for me. He is literally a quarter of a point behind Mason Graham. Ridiculous potential. And then you pair him up with Kenneth Grant, you're literally going to be getting just that same dynamic duo. So unique decision, but I actually ended up not despising it at all. At number 85, we get the Buccaneers going Ollie Gordon. I don't think Ollie Gordon's worth a day 2 pick. I don't know why he came out. I still think he's a solid back, but going to be someone who I'd probably take in like the 6th or 7th round. And Baltimore goes Kevin Winston. I don't know why he declared. The dude, his whole entire team primarily, well, not whole entire team, but when you have your quarterback return to school, I wouldn't necessarily come out, especially when you're coming off an injury-riddled season with a really good safety class. I'll just put that out there. But the Ravens get themselves a good one. Danny Stutzman goes to the Saints. I honestly think this is a really good replacement for Willie Gay. So you get yourself a nice will linebacker there. Denver Broncos go Barrett Carter. I mean, he's a really good player that just... statistically, I don't think it's representative of the talent that he does bring to the table for Clemson. And I think he is actually going to be possibly even a better linebacker in the NFL than he is in college. Jaden Higgins goes to the Houston Texans at 89. Love seeing them go after another Iowa State wide receiver who is very similar to Xavier Hutchinson. But I do think the Texans need to continue addressing wide receiver. I love the Steelers getting Jalen Royals at number 90. I do that in the 2nd round. I highly doubt that he'll be here. But the Steelers can somehow land Ravel. What do we do in a second? Jack Sawyer and then Jalen Royals. I'm not going to bitch too much. I'm going to nag. I'm going to complain. That's just the way I roll. But, the Steelers, if they end up landing Jalen Royals at number 90, that's where we ended up landing. Who did we end up landing last year at 90? I'm tripping. It wasn't Roman Wilson. It was Peyton Wilson. So would love for us to go back-to-back pick 90s and end up selecting really, really good players. And at number 91, you got the Packers going Quincy Riley. And a boundary corner is a really good addition. It's a very smart player, good athlete. I would love to see him there in Green Bay. Jaguars then go Torrey Horton. He was out for the year, I believe, with an ACL. Was not athletic enough for me to give him a good day 2 grade, but really good after the catch. Cleveland Browns can go Davison Igbinosun. Excellent value. I think if you put Zy Alexander to safety, this makes this pick a lot better. Harold Perkins goes to the Philadelphia Eagles at 94. I almost see no way that Harold Perkins declares, but if he does, ridiculous value. New York Jets then go Tyler Barron at 95. Gonna respect it. Really good value at a high value position. Chiefs go Jay Higgins at 96, and apparently they don't have the comp picks in, but that ends off the draft. Jay Higgins, I don't really think he's necessarily a day 2 guy, but it's very similar to Josie Jewell, of somebody who I think will be drafted day 3 that just ends up sticking to a roster and just being really adequate, but maybe not elite, which maybe should be a day 2 pick. But regardless, thank you so much for watching. I love you. See you on the far side. Peace.